Are you a philosopher?
No, no, I'm a teacher.
Hi there, intentional teachers. Let's have a real talk today about quality. Not test scores, not checklists. I'm talking about that deep, meaningful, can't fake it kind of quality that comes when a teacher is intentional about everything they do. See, there's this thing in business called the cost of quality. It's the idea that doing things the right way takes effort, but not doing them right can cost even more. I'm thinking, how does this relate to teaching? We're not having an economics class, are we? But hear me out. We're constantly balancing our time, energy, and emotions between doing it right and just surviving. Let me tell you, I've done both. There were years I was so burnt out that quality meant I remembered to brush my teeth after drinking coffee and talking to before I talked to my students. But as I grew as an educator, I realized when I'm intentional about why and how I teach, my classroom runs smoother, my students thrive, and I feel lighter. That's the cost of quality. It's not about perfection, it's about investment. So today we're going to talk about why this idea matters in teaching. Remember, we always begin with the why. What the four costs of quality look like in education and how you can implement them to teach with purpose and peace without burnout and busyness. Oh, and we'll keep it honest and I'll try to be funny to keep you entertained because we have to have a little bit of laughter when we talk about education too. Else we'll just be crying in our grading piles, wouldn't we? So let's begin. We are living in a time when teachers are expected to be perfect, but we're given conditions that are anything but perfect. We're asked to personalize instruction, manage behaviors, integrate technology, collect data, call parents, run after school programs, and then smile for a morale boosting photo. Can you imagine saying cheese and ignoring the fact that your copier is broke and you haven't went to the bathroom since 8:15 a.m.? Here's the hard truth. We cannot keep pouring from an empty cup and still call that quality. That's why this conversation matters. The cost of quality model helps us see where our energy is going and where it's leaking. It gives us a language to say, this is worth the cost, or I'm paying too much for a little return. Quality teaching requires boundaries, reflection, and a clear why. Because when your why is clear, your how becomes sustainable. So let's do our first journal reflection. Remember, we're reflection practitioners. Guys, every single workshop, I get tongue tied with a word. So we are reflection practitioners, okay? And this is the first journal. Ask yourself, where do I feel like I'm giving a lot in teaching, but not getting results that reflect my effort? What part of my teaching feels the most aligned with my purpose right now? Remember, you can get the journal down in the description link below. And if you really want a full step by step of how to do this, then of course, as always, you can purchase the book, The Intentional Teacher's Workshop, A Reflective Guide. And that will give you the step by step that you would need to really put all of this, of what we're going through in our workshops, into place. Okay, now let's break it down. In business, cost of quality is divided into four parts: prevention costs, appraisal costs, internal failure costs, and external failure costs. The goal is to spend more upfront on prevention and appraisal, so you spend less later on fixing failures. Okay, so remember the goal. This is our keeping the end in mind. Okay, the goal is to spend more upfront on prevention and appraisal. Okay. In education, we can think of these as Prevention equals preparation. That could be the planning, training that we get, and the self care. Appraisal equals reflection. That's checking for understanding, monitoring impact. Okay, data with exit tickets. Internal failure is the correction, fixing what's not working before it grows and reaches outside of the classroom. External failure equals our reputation, how our classroom and practice are perceived externally by parents, admin, data, community. It can also be that failure to close in the gap of our students. Okay. When we balance these costs intentionally, our teaching becomes more joyful and effective, not because we're working harder, but because we're working wiser. Think of it this way. You can either spend 30 minutes setting up your class systems or spend 180 days saying, stop talking, please, sit down in your chairs. You know what you were supposed to do. Wasn't that supposed to be turned in last night? That's the cost of quality. So let's start with prevention. Businesses spend money to make sure things don't go wrong. Teachers, we spend time and energy. It's our lesson planning, professional development, classroom setup, and yes, even the emotional prep we do each morning in the car with coffee in one hand and deep breaths in the other. But prevention isn't just about working more, it's about working intentionally. We have to think about our systems that keeps us motivated, keeps the students motivated, and keep the classroom moving like a good engine. Here's how to bring prevention into your classroom. Create routines that protect your peace. A calm morning routine for students can save you a chaotic afternoon. Anticipate confusion points. Explain them before they trip students up. Plan transitions like they're mini lessons because, in effect, they are. If you've ever lost 5 minutes because 24 students suddenly forgot how to line up, that's an unplanned failure cost. Okay. If you had to spend 5 minutes explaining the directions again, that's an unplanned failure cost. I want you to now think about your top 3 classroom problems you often face. How could you prevent them with clear systems or expectations? I'll give you a minute to think about that. Remember, you can pause or you can come back to it later. Businesses test their products before they ship. We test our teaching before it's too late to adjust. This is where reflection and feedback lives. Appraisal and teaching means checking how learning is going, not waiting for test scores to tell you. It's your exit tickets, your turn and talk moments, your student surveys. And sometimes it's the one brave student who says, Miss Wallace, I didn't understand any of that. That's free appraisal data right there. Implementing appraisal in your classroom may look like a 1 minute reflection. What was clear today? What was confusing? Let students self-assess, teach them to recognize their own learning. Keep a teacher win journal where you can reflect on what went well. I always encourage my teachers to record their classes. And it's not so that I want them to cringe looking at themselves teaching, but I want them to notice the things that they may not notice while they're teaching. A lot of times we may not know that we're only calling on one particular side of the classroom. And that's why the other side is disengaged. We may not notice that when the exact time when you saw disengagement in the lesson, okay? Because we're in it, we're in the thick of things. So allowing yourself to record and go back and see and reflect and appraise your lesson will save you so much time later on. And if you ever teach a lesson and think that went perfectly, check your students' faces. They'll tell you the truth before the data does. Remember, just because the students are having fun doesn't mean that they're learning. So you want to ensure that the lesson is not being overpowered by the fun of the lesson, and that there's actual learning going on. So when you get that data, you get that exit ticket, you're not surprised like, wait, they didn't get anything. Okay. So here's a journal reflection. How often do you pause to check what's working instead of just checking what's done? I like that journal reflection. Next, this is where the quality gets real. Internal failures. Internal failures are the things that break down inside your practice before anyone else sees it. A failed lesson, an off week, a system that's more work than it's worth. I once created a behavior chart so complicated it needed its own manual. That's when I realized if it takes a PhD to follow my seating chart or my behavioral plan, it's not a classroom system. Internal failures are part of growth. They're proof you're trying. I like to look at internal failures as those things that we can get a hold of before it goes too far. You know, it's like um the only thing that's coming to my mind right now is like a fire. You know, it might have started off where you could have just thrown water or flour or something in it. But because we didn't catch it right away, it blew up until it burnt the whole entire house down. This is what internal failure looks like. It's those little things that we could have caught and we could have taken care of it before it left the classroom. Okay. So, how do we handle internal fires gracefully? Admit when something is not working. And you can say it out loud. You can say, hey, guys, it looks like we need to take a step back. This is what I'm going to do. I want everyone now to put away this and let's take out a piece of paper and we're going to do something different now. Okay, that is you modeling resilience to the students and letting them know if something doesn't work, we're going to pivot and go the other way and make it work this way. Okay, and there's nothing wrong with that. Ask the students, how was this lesson? What would you guys change the next time if we do it? Don't delete the flop, debrief it. Okay. I remember in class, a lot of times when I see that my lesson is overwhelming the students, that I have to step back and I have to say, okay, guys, where do you feel overwhelmed? What's happening right now into your thoughts? And they will let you know. Students are extremely vocal and honest about their learning. We just have to be willing to hear them. So here's our reflection. What's one failure that actually became a turning point in your teaching practice? How do you work out your your failures when you're seeing them in real time? Are you reactive or are you proactive? Okay, so that's what we want to think about when we're talking about internal failures. Being proactive so that we don't have to become reactive. Okay, the next part of the cost of quality are the external failures. The external failures, those are the public ones. Those are the ones that have reached the parents and the parents start complaining and the parents complain to the administration. Okay. These are the low test scores, the awkward admin feedback when they're coming in to evaluate your class. These are the students who left your class and went to the next grade without a firm foundation of what was taught in your class. Okay, these are all external failures. And listen, here's the truth: every teacher experiences them, and they are painful, but they do not define us unless we allow them to. So remember, you are not defined by your data or your discipline logs or your one bad day. You are defined about how you're going to choose to respond. So, how do we turn external failures into growth? Listen for patterns. One complaint might be noise, three might be data. So, yes, you may have an annoying parent that's always trying to get your attention, always wants to talk to you, always wants to set up meetings. But listen to what they're saying, and not to internalize it as you're a bad teacher, but to internalize it as to, okay, is there something, is validity to what this parent is saying? Okay. The same way with the administration feedback, use it, use it as a place for growth. If a student fails the test or they're coming back with a low grade, use it as data and respond, determine, how can I grow from this? How can my practices improve? What do I need to do so that these external failures can become less and less and less? Okay. Reframe your feedback. What is this trying to teach me? And celebrate progress publicly. Let others see your response to growth. If you've ever smiled politely while being coached on something you already knew, congratulations. That means you've survived an external failure with class. And that's what you want to do. You want to bounce back and do it in a way where it's like, I came back and I came back better than ever, not feeling defeated. Maybe this isn't for me. Maybe I need to throw my hands up and I'm just done with it. These students, these parents, these da 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 da. No. Okay. So here's your journal reflection. How can you turn external pressure into internal clarity? Next, let's pull this all together. We went with the why, we dealt with the what. Now let's look at the how. Okay. How do you actually implement these 4 parts of quality day to day? The first one, prevention. Build systems that run on autopilot. I always say, if I am sick and a substitute has to come to my class, my students should know the routine. They should, my classroom should be able to still run itself, whether I'm in that class or I'm out of that class. Write lesson plans with your mission in mind. We talked about this with the last workshop. Your lesson plan should have that objective. Okay. Also, with your lesson plan, listen, I know that we hate to lesson plan and it takes up a lot of our time, but it's for good reason. If we lesson plan, we are able to input, okay, right here, so and so may not understand, or this is the way I need to scaffold this particular lesson. We can put in those little notes that we need. We can take out this resource, put in this resource. Lesson planning is so important, even though we hate it so much. Okay. Next, practice emotional boundaries. We talked about it with our last workshop. Prevention for your peace. Think about when you can take those breaks. How are you going to take those breaks? How are you going to manage your grading time as well as your me time? Okay, so these are things that will help do prevention. And when we talk about prevention, remember, this is about the intentional teacher. This is about the teacher. Okay, so we're talking about things that's going to help the teacher. And one of those things is preventing the burnout. Appraisal. Reflect weekly. What worked, what didn't, and why. Ask students for feedback. They're your best quality inspectors. They will tell you the truth if you ask them. Okay. For internal failure, I want you to be flexible. Okay. I want you to be willing to come away from the plan and not be afraid to implement something new if needed to. I want you to feel comfortable with relinquishing the power and allowing someone else to take control. It could be a student, that student can come in and, okay, what's needed, what's not needed, ask a colleague, can I sit into your class? I'm having a difficult time with understanding how to do multiple entry points. Can I sit in your class because I heard that you were really good with multiple entry points? We have to be able to reflect without shame. Okay. We have to be able to learn out loud, and we have to be able to model growth for our students, for ourselves. Okay. Fix what's broken before it defines your culture. Fix what's broken before it gets to the point where it cannot be fixed. Okay. For your external failures, lead with humility. Share your journey. This is what I'm trying to do now. I'm trying to share my journey. I'm not the best podcaster. This is all new to me. But what is real and what is I would say intentional is that what I know and what I've gone through to try to be an intentional teacher, I can share that with others. And this will not only allow me to reflect, because I have to reflect before I come to you, but it also allows me to bring in a community and learn and be better and grow better, which in turn I can take back to my classroom. Okay. Let your growth become your testimony and not your trauma. That student that failed, don't let, or the gaps didn't close, don't let that be your last moment. Determine, what do I need to do to make sure that my students are ready for the next grade? Okay, your administrator came with a bad evaluation. Okay, take the critique and figure out, what do I need to do to become better. Your external failures are not your failures of life. Okay, they're just your data for growth. So here's your final reflection. Which cost are you investing in most right now, and which one have you ignored? Okay. I want us to really become reflective in our practices and learn how we are as educational practitioners. This week's challenge is going to be, I think, fun. This week's challenge, I'm going to call it Quality in Action Challenge. So here it is for you intentional teachers. Pick one area of quality. It could be prevention, appraisal, internal failure, external failure. Then do these three things: identify it in your classroom, take one small intentional action to improve it, journal what changed in your mood, your students, or your classroom flow. Then share your reflections with the community using the hashtag intentional teacher workshop or the hashtag quality in action challenge. And remember, this isn't about doing more. It's about doing what matters intentionally. You want to become better on purpose. Okay? The cost of quality in teaching is real, but so is the return on investment. Every time you plan with purpose, teach with heart, or reflect with honesty, you're building a classroom that lasts longer than a school year. Cheap teaching costs too much. Intentional teaching, it pays in peace, joy, and student transformation. Isn't that what we're looking for? Until next time, keep teaching with purpose, keep teaching with quality, and remember, stay intentional. Thank you guys for listening to another workshop. If you found this helpful, then please share it with a colleague, hit subscribe, and make sure that you comment and you like. I hope to see you again, and I cannot wait to hear about the challenge and how well it transformed you. Remember, that's what we're looking for: intentional transformations. Until then, I'll see you guys next week. Bye.
Are you a philosopher?
No, no, I'm a teacher. I'm a teacher. I'm a teacher.